Look, I get it. ADHD can be super hard, and I personally have been fighting my ADHD to make this video in particular. But it can also help our careers in amazing ways, so let's get to it. Hi there, if you are new to my channel, my name is Lee and I'm a leadership coach specialising in growing the careers of mid to senior neurospices, and today I want to talk about how we can make our ADHD work in our careers. A lot of the time people come to me because they're struggling. Emotional dysregulation is a struggle, rejection sensitivity is a struggle, executive function is a struggle, ADHD is a struggle, and this video is by no means to say that ADHD is easy or that if you're struggling then you're failing or any of that. I completely acknowledge that ADHD is and can be a struggle. I'm not saying we shouldn't manage those challenges. I put out videos on executive function and rejection sensitivity already, and I probably will do something on emotional dysregulation at some point. But let's be real. Yes, you put so much work into managing your ADHD, but managing your ADHD isn't the thing that makes you amazing. It isn't the thing that's got you to where you are in your career now and will continue to see you growing. Yes, it's a part of it, but it's your strengths that are what's driving you forwards. Now, a lot of your strengths will be personal. Maybe you're an amazing artist or have this uncanny ability to bring two conflicting people together and resolve the challenge. But there are also ways that your ADHD can be harnessed and turned into a strength, and that's what I want to talk about today. Before I get going, I do want to acknowledge that not every one of these strengths will apply to you. Everyone's neurodivergence presents differently, so what we do when we're neurodivergent is we try things on, see if they fit. If they don't, we throw them out, and that's okay. We have to work out what works for our unique brains, so feel free to try anything and throw out what doesn't work for you. So the first place I want to start with today is with a quote from a paper that I read that has this amazing name that says, "The untapped potential of the ADHD employee in the workplace." Now, this paper takes quite a pragmatic approach. More and more people are being diagnosed with ADHD. We're finding ADHD at an increasing rate. So companies are going to have to hire people that have ADHD and probably already have employees with ADHD. So in order to get the potential out of them, they need to manage them better. There are too many of us for companies to just ignore. And so if they ignore our ADHD, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. But the quote I like is, "In relation to someone's value in the workplace, an employee with ADHD may be the quintessential diamond in the rough. Accordingly, ADHD employees have a special propensity to outperform the other employees when managed properly." It then goes on to talk about how we might better perform in jobs that aren't sedentary, like sales or maybe like graphic design, something that's artistic. Part of the reason for this is our ability to be creative thinkers. It's often said that we are amazing at divergent thinking, so this is the ability to think of new and novel ideas and is considered a measure of creativity. And in fact, a study has been done to measure just that, our creativity. In the 2011 paper, Creative Style and Achievement in Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, the authors found that adults with ADHD actually got high scores on the abbreviated Torrance test, which is a measure of creativity. They also found out that we have more real-world creative achievements than adults who don't have ADHD. And in fact, creativity was also mentioned in one of the papers that I looked at last week when it was considered a unique strength that many of the people interviewed with ADHD had. When I think about creativity in the context of the ADHD traits, there are a couple of things that I think potentially goes into it. One of which is that we have hyperfixation, so these intense bursts of interest into a particular topic that is interesting and exciting for us. And so this enables us to learn about all sorts of different things. You combine that with our propensity to be curious, and we just take in so much information, learn so many different things that we can make connections or find out new ideas that other people just might not be able to. And that is a real asset of our ADHD. We also tend to change jobs more frequently, which definitely can be seen as a bad thing for our career, but also means we're getting all these different experiences and different learning that we can bring together. When you combine all these aspects together, we have such a breadth of information from disparate sources, and innovation and creative thinking comes from being able to get something new based on the information we've collected. If you're still not convinced, I recommend reading the book Range: How Generalists Triumph in a Specialised World. I've actually not reread the book since I got diagnosed with ADHD, but it's something I'm keen to do because it talks about how people that have a range of hobbies or a range of backgrounds actually tend to be more successful than people who are just specialists. It finds that the world's top performers in a whole variety of domains tend to be from those generalist backgrounds rather than the specialist ones. If you have ADHD, then chances are you probably are a bit of a generalist, like I am. So lean into it, learn the different skills, bring different aspects together, enjoy those hyperfixations. All of these are adding to your creativity and allowing you to ideate and come up with new ideas and creative problem solving. We can also use this from a people perspective as well. I once heard a comment that people who have ADHD sometimes get bored at work, and so to get dopamine they volunteer for all sorts of extracurricular activities, and that's what I did. I was on the choir committee of our small workplace choir. I took part in innovation groups. I took part in a full range of workplace events, even to the point where people just would nominate me for these things. I wouldn't even have to volunteer anymore because it became a bit of a, Lee's interested in this, let's put her forwards. And most of the time, yeah, I was interested and happy to do it. Taking part in all these different activities had benefits. Yes, it gave me the dopamine that my brain needed through that variety, but also it enabled me to get experience of a wide range of areas, which meant that I could do the creative problem solving that I mentioned earlier. I was also contributing to the workplace culture in a way that was really positive. But there's one more thing about this that I think might be overlooked, and that's just how powerful this can be from a people perspective. Through taking part in these events and activities, I was meeting people from all over the company, all sorts of different departments, and I was becoming an amazing networker without really even trying, just because I was having these positive interactions with people. That meant that whenever my team or my project needed something, I often had someone in another team or department that I needed that I could speak to get things done. This was something I actually became known for, and one of the juniors that I used to mentor actually dubbed me the most connected person in the department. I had this amazing ability to get things done, because when we'd need a different team or a department, I usually had an initial contact that I could at least get the conversation going with or could point me towards the right person, just because we'd had some positive interactions through these extracurricular activities that we were both doing. Now I know this is going to put some people off already, because I'm basically telling you to network, and you might be really nervous about the whole concept of networking, so please allow me the opportunity to calm your nerves a little bit here. The first thing I want to say is that the connection doesn't actually have to be that deep. Sometimes we just met for one day at one event and we just chatted for a little bit and we got something done together, and that was it, you know. I didn't know their partners or how many kids they had, I didn't know what their hobbies were outside of work. We just had one really positive interaction on one particular day, and that would be enough that they knew who I was and that they had good feelings about me, and so therefore it was much easier to get a conversation, to get something going in the future. But we do actually have some skills in this realm, because one of our strengths is actually our sense of humour. And in a 2018 paper they asked what people would miss if their ADHD went away, and so many of the respondents said their sense of humour. We do have an amazing sense of humour that bonds people together. Humour encourages tolerance, compassion, a sense of identification with humanity itself, and just helps us to bond with people and foster those positive relationships. Another situation in which I found myself regularly bonding with the people I worked with was in crisis situations. Now, I didn't work in a role where a crisis was anything life or death, and I was fortunate to have not had to work in that kind of crisis situation. But often there were a lot of projects that were high pressure, things that had tight deadlines and a lot of pressure coming that we needed to get things done ASAP. There was so much pressure that these situations felt like a crisis. And I'm not going to go as far as to say they were enjoyable, because they weren't enjoyable, they were very stressful. But what they did do was they allowed me to bond with the people that I was in that situation with, a kind of low stakes trauma bonding, if you will. And it helped foster relationships that proved to be really useful in the future. It also helped that my brain is amazing in a crisis. And I've seen this anecdotally time and time again in ADHD communities and people that I coach, both online and offline. But I've really struggled so far to find papers to support this, so I think it's something that's a little bit uninvestigated at this point. But from what I can tell, our brains have this amazing ability to respond to a crisis situation and slip into that focus so we can move through that situation. The calmness is a huge advantage because it means that we can work through this situation, we can move things forwards instead of falling apart or really struggling. And this kind of cool, calm and collected response to a crisis situation gets noticed. People value a clear head in a crisis, and we can really get recognised for our ability to do this. Now, this is something we do need to be careful about. Too many back-to-back crisis situations and we can get burnt out, and we do not want to be in that kind of situation. But becoming known as someone who can rescue the occasional crisis, being recognised as someone who is amazing in those situations, we can really use that to an advantage in our careers. Another thing I wanted to highlight is how we can utilise our passion to build our careers. ADHDers tend to be passionate, enthusiastic people. We are full of excitability, and our passion, and more importantly our ambidexterity of our passion, it was found to be hugely advantageous towards entrepreneurs. A 2020 study found that ADHD entrepreneurs with a passion for founding and developing, but not new idea generation, was a predictor of being highly successful entrepreneurs. One last note is that I feel like whenever I talk about the positive aspect of ADHD, I do need to throw in a note on hyperfocus. And I'm always a little bit reluctant to throw in that note on hyperfocus because it's a bit of a double-edged sword. When we go into hyperfocus, we can be super productive and get loads of stuff done, but that can also be at a detriment to our personal well-being. We might forget to eat, we might forget to sleep, and also we don't get to choose when we go into hyperfocus. It's not something that we can just switch on when we feel like we need it. It's also entirely interest-based, so we can't choose what to hyperfocus on. So when the stars align and we hyperfocus in the right thing at the right time, it's absolutely amazing. But it's a little bit too inconsistent for me to really say, use your hyperfocus for your career and you'll be great. It's not really how it works. So that's it for today's video. I really hope it's been helpful in thinking about ways that we can harness our ADHD to be a net positive in our careers. I've met so many inspiring ADHDers in all different kinds of roles, and it's really been formational to me to be able to see these people and see the amazing stuff that they're doing. I'm really excited to see where my ADHD is going to take me in my career. If you're interested in hearing more about ADHD in the workplace, you might like to check out my previous video on how we can make our workplaces a little bit more ADHD and autism friendly. Thank you for your attention today, and I will see you in the next one.